Britain, Britain, Britain. Wait, actually, I know somebody who can do this a lot better than I can.
Britain, 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 land of technological achievement. We've had running water for over 10 years, an underground tunnel that links us to Peru, and we invented the cat. But none of these innovations would have been possible were it not for the people of Britain. And it is those people that we do look at today. Let's do it.
Let's get into the video. Pokemon Sword and Shield, the 8th generation in the series about catching tiny creatures and making them fight to the death. And as a British person, it's perfect because this particular generation is set in the green rolling hills of the British Isles. Centuries of history, culture, and a little bit of land stealing and colonization, but we won't mention that. The Galar region looks like home to me. The houses clad in limestone, wooden bridges across babbling brooks, and the sheep. Lots and lots and lots of sheep. I started my Pokemon journey way back in Generation 1, skipped 2 for some reason, and hold the fondest memories of Hoenn when I was the perfect age for my first Pokemon. 10 years old, where type matchups meant nothing and I had a level 80 Swampert and the rest of the team somewhere around the level 30 area. Today I am playing Pokemon Sword, another game that I completely skipped in the timeline, but I am glad in a way because it means I can go into this completely blind and see what the UK inspired region has to offer and give some completely new opinions and reactions along the way. I am using a modded version, namely the Crowned Sword version, just because it adds some extra things here and there and makes some quality of life changes people have recommended to me. So, without further ado, let's dive into Pokemon Sword. We start off in an arena where a gloriously moustached man is explaining to us all about the region, and a Cufant appears, showing us the next generation of creatures. Then we are introduced to the region's champion, Leon, and of course, another sheep. Moving into the first part of the story, we meet Hop, a wonderful traditional British name. Wait, hang on. Oh. Anyway, Hop tells us that the champion we saw in the earlier footage is in fact his brother, who is coming back home to stay for a while. Outside, we find a Wooloo attempting to off himself on a fence. Are sheep suicidal? Wait, I can Google that as well. There are no official statistics for sheep committing suicide in the UK, as science does not recognise suicidal behaviour in sheep. However, sheep are often described as having a tendency to put themselves in fatal situations or acting in ways that can be misinterpreted as self-destructive. Fair enough. Leaving the self-destructive Wooloo behind, Hop then proceeds to insult my bag and starts the race to his house while I'm still stuck in a cutscene. What a bellend. Oh, and more sheep. On the way to the house, I have to stop and talk to Bill Nye, the science guy of course, before we meet up and head to the station to meet Leon, Hop's brother and the Galar champion. After throwing up some gang signs that would get you shanked in parts of Croydon, Leon introduces himself as the Galar champion, and his wish is for all of the trainers in the region to work together and to all become the strongest. We are then sent on a traditional Pokemon backtrack compilation to Hop's house to pick up our starter Pokemon. Now I always choose the fire starter usually, so this time I went with the little frog tree man, Grookey. I called him Twiglet as Marmite is bloody lovely. Hop wanted a battle, and unlike the older games I grew up with, these days the rival chooses the starter that is weak to yours instead of strong against. Hand-holding in these games is off the chart. Also, he has 2 Pokemon, which is just unfair, and I reckon Leon should have just not let him carry on his journey if that's how he's going to behave. Even with the clear advantage, I offed his 2 Pokemon, and off we went on our adventure to Route 1. Or did we? Because just as we turned the corner, a sound not unlike a self-destructive Wooloo smashing his way through a fence rang out down the lane. Of course, in a normal situation I was in control of, I would have just ignored the sound in the customary British way, mumbled something about those bloody kids these days, and had a cup of Yorkshire tea, but Hop had other ideas. I'm starting to really dislike this guy, but reluctantly I followed Hop back up the hill and we ventured into the forest where Rulu had trespassed. Upon finding Hop some way ahead, a howl that sounded nothing like a wooloo rumbled through the trees, and although this was Hop's second chance to do the right thing and turn around, he just headed deeper into the mist. Suddenly a Pokemon appeared that I could literally do no damage to, and after hotboxing the entire area, it disappeared, leaving myself and Hop fast asleep on the deck, only to be rescued by Leon. How is he gonna think we have any chance of becoming champions if a bit of mist is knocking us out? Anyway, heading out of the forest, we finally ended up on Route 1. On the way I grabbed a Rookidee, but I wouldn't get too attached. I mean, I even forgot to give the poor thing a nickname. If I had, however, it would have been Blue Tit, as there were lots of those around my house as a kid, and it's got the word tit, which is funny, isn't it? Further down the road we met Leon, who introduced us to Sonia, the professor's granddaughter. She gave us a Pokedex and sent us off to find the professor. I healed at the Pokemon Center and caught an Electrike, battled a few trainers and met... Oh my god, is that...
Welcome to Hogwarts.
Oh wait, no, Magnolia. Never mind, I got a little excited then. You know how us Brits go mad for a bit of Potter. She made me battle Hop to see if we could get a recommendation for the gym challenge from Leon, and after the battle was over, 2 wishing stars fell from the sky. This is the precursor to Gigantamaxing, the gimmick introduced in Generation 8. I knew absolutely nothing about it, so let's find out together. Magnolia made us some bracelets to wear, and off we went again, headed to the train station to find the first gym town. On the way I found a Pikachu and an Eevee, static encounters introduced by the mod I'm using, which the link for that will be in the description by the way, as there are 2 NPCs at Wedgehorst Station that will give you them if you have a save file of either Let's Go Eevee or Let's Go Pikachu on your Switch. And although I do have those games and have played them through, I'm not playing on actual hardware purely to make editing and recording easier, so I'm very grateful for these additions. I named my Pikachu Jones, and didn't name the Eevee yet as I wasn't quite sure what evolution I would need to evolve it later on down the line. I also fished up a Goldeen and called it 1 pound fish. If you're British you'll know all about that. And then off we went to the station. Hop gave me the TM for Swift, a move that never misses, and we boarded the train to Motostoke. Before arriving there, however, we had to disembark the train due to the line being blocked by, guess what? The bloody self-destructive sheep. I'm amazed there are any of these left in the world at this point. This meant we would have to travel on foot through the wild area to reach the next town. I headed into the wild area, saw a massive Onyx, avoided the hell out of the massive Onyx, shook a few trees and caught a Ponyta that I named Frankel in memory of one of the best race horses to ever race horse. And of course, he's British. This tied off a nice type covered team before I headed deeper into the wild area. After spending some time in the wild zone, I made my way into Motostoke to see what all this gym ceremony was about. I was pointed to a stadium by Sonia and Leon and headed up a very unsafe looking lift. Before the ceremony, however, I was to stay in the 5-star Budu Inn. Inside the reception area, I found a group of fanboys called the Yells. These were fans of Marnie and didn't like the fact that I was stood there or something. I don't actually know what their issue was, but they wanted to fight about it. I took them down and won the last double battle with Hop before meeting the Marnie they all worship herself. I'm not sure what all the fuss is about. Maybe she has like 1 million followers on Instagram, or she's met iShowSpeed one time, I don't know. Anyway, the next morning we were greeted by the gym challenge opening ceremony itself. All except one of the gym leaders were kind enough to show up. Not sure where the other one was, prior commitment or something, but anyway, we had the strong looking farmer, the grass leader Milo, water leader Nessa, fire gym leader Kabu, fighting leader B, the insane looking fairy leader Opal, rock leader Gordy, and the dragon tamer Raihan. Outside after the ceremony, we were greeted by the moustached man from earlier who introduced himself as Rose. These names are getting worse. I've got a bad feeling about him too, something fishy going on there. He couldn't stay, however, some business he had to attend to. Suspicious business, no doubt. I'm sure we'll find out. After that, I was granted access to the flying taxi service, this generation's version of Fly, which will let me fast travel back to cities and points of interest that I have previously visited. Now then, a little disclaimer here, I was a little unaware, let's say, of how much more difficult than I was expecting this mod to be. I am a casual Pokemon player at best. I've played a lot of games through, but never more than twice and never competitively, so imagine my surprise when Little Hop absolutely melted me in this next rival battle. Not once or twice, but maybe 4 or 5 times. Having looked up the fine print in the mod's description, I find that the trainers and gym leader Pokemon are not only level buffed, but EV trained and have actual strategy. I was in for a struggle, let me tell you. I cut my losses and decided to go and train back in the wild area for a bit and try to catch some better team members, evolving Grookey into Thwackey in the process and Rookidee into Corvisquire. The mod adds more items and Pokeballs into all the shops, including a Master Ball for a cool 1 million, maybe another time. I was to get a little bit of luck though, finding a shiny Squirtle to add to my team. With a stronger party in tow, I managed to beat Hop with a skip and a jump and headed onto Route 3 towards my first gym challenge. And let me tell you, I had no idea of the hell that was awaiting me. Next up between me and the first gym leader was the Galar mine, full of roly-colies having a wonderful time in minecarts and tracks like the Lost Boys of Neverland. I made my way through pretty sharpish until I reached the exit where I bumped into my next formidable foe. Another challenger, this time endorsed by the Chairman Rose himself, called Bede, or Bede, something like that. She was a tough psychic trainer with a very smart strategy, and I only just scraped past her by the skin of my teeth. I then found myself in the next town of Tuffield, where not 2 steps in I was randomly assaulted by, you guessed it, a self-destructive sheep. This one, however, belonged to the first gym leader Milo, who no doubt had seen my impressive win over Hop at the 39th time of asking, and was so scared he wanted to maim me before our battle. Hop then called me over, asking me to catch up with Sonia, though he didn't know where she was. I was just to follow this dog for some reason, but as a British person, I love following rules, so dutifully I would have let this little yamper lead me off a cliff. Thankfully though, or this series would have been very short indeed, the yamper led me directly to Sonia, who was puzzling over some strange markings on a hill. I believe this is a nod to some very famous hill drawings in the UK, most notably the Uffington White Horse. Future me will edit a picture on screen now to show you what I think this is referencing. Sonia was musing over the fact that this could depict a Gigantamaxed Pokemon, and I tended to agree. However, the markings were made many years before Gigantamaxing was discovered, leading to us both pondering on the fact that maybe ancient civilizations had access to Gigantamaxed Pokemon, or someone was just really high one day and went on a walk with some white paint. Now then, on to the first gym battle, and this was rough. It started off in a way I couldn't imagine being any more British, by herding some sheep. I had to herd the sheep towards the hay bales, with pesky yampers trying to foil my plans at every opportunity. I fought the optional trainers for some extra EXP, but I might as well not have. I was helpless in this fight. Milo led with a Roserade who spammed toxic spikes, leaving every Pokemon who I brought in badly poisoned. Coupled with Stun Spore to lower the speed of my Ponyta, it was a mixture of absolute pain. Ludicolo up next with Titadance wasn't much better, but it was the Appleton that made the worst battle I had faced turn into something out of a nightmare. I left, leveled up my Pokemon to the same level as the gym leaders, and tried again. Nothing. The Appleton combined Leech Seed with Leftovers, Recover, and Curse, lowering its already low speed to raise both its defense and attack. I had to take it down quick, or it just became this absolute unit who could heal almost a quarter of its own HP per turn before even needing to use Recover. So I had to overlevel. It was only when I was at maybe 6 to 8 levels above did I manage to win. I dread what is to come now, and with the first gym badge under my belt, I limped off towards Route 4. Thank you so much for making it this far. This is the end of episode 1. If anybody has any tips for this mod or things they just want to see or even want a Pokemon named after you, head down to the comments and let me know. This is a bit of a different step for me and I am trying to work out the bugs as I go. If I can make each video just a little bit better than the last, then I'll be a happy man. Don't forget to subscribe down below so you don't miss episode 2, and for those that are there, I'll see you then.